Minister Puri, who will explain the amazing success that India has had in this area. Minister.
Thank you very much. When you tried to introduce yourself, I wanted to say that you don't need any introduction. I think for all of us who are involved in different segments of the energy thing, you are not only very well known but highly respected. So thank you for moderating this session. Before the third edition of India Energy Week started, I was asked by my friends in the Fourth Estate, the press, what do you think is going to be the main issue? So, depends on whom you are speaking to. I was tempted to say then, but I am saying now. By the way, this is no longer a private session. This is open to the press, so we should all be aware of that. I want to first welcome my distinguished colleagues, the ministers who are present and who have very kindly agreed, and other representatives on this table. Why is this subject so important? One, because I think we have a situation in which, in spite of all the progress that's been made around the world, 2.3 billion people continue to use polluting fuels such as charcoal, wood, and animal dung during the and with all the consequences on health, gender, environment, all the problems. So that's a given fact. And that, I think, reflects very poorly on our collective management. That's the first submission I make. Secondly, if you look at the various calculations, how many people have suffered adverse or injurious consequences to the health, there are 3 million premature deaths annually, according to one estimate. IEA says 3.7, UNEP says 3.1, with women and children being the most disproportionately impacted. More than that, if you look at gender focus, you have a situation in which some of our sisters or daughters spend 5 hours a day collecting fuel and preparing meals, etc. So what a waste of, good human effort that entails. Nearly half of all ambient air pollution, exacerbating respiratory illnesses, environmental degradation. Now, I could go on giving the statistics, but I think they're in the public domain. Let me fast forward to India. Why do I think that in all the work that we've done on energy, why is this something which I think is one of my favorite aspects? And I take no credit for it. I've been part of this ministry only 3.5 years. It started well before me. Let me go back to my days as a student, even when I was in the university. To get a cylinder of LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, which is a product of a refinery, you required a lot of connections. You required you needed to know people. That was with great difficulty. If you had a recommendation, you could get an LPG cylinder. When Prime Minister Modi took over, the total number of LPG connections in India was 14 crores, which is 140 million? 140 million. Now we have a population of 1.4 billion. So if you have only 140, that's not enough. But today, he has raised the number of connections from 140 million today to about 330 million. So if each connection, let's say, services a household of 4 or 5 people, it means you have a situation in which the entire population has LPG. Plus, we have a pipeline through which we send natural gas, which is about 25-30% cheaper than that. But what is my real story here? In India, if you are a beneficiary of a government scheme for economically weaker section, you can get clean cooking gas available for you, which costs not more than 7 cents in a day. And that 7 cents is also depending on the exchange rate, with the dollar. So 7 cents in a day. If you are not a beneficiary of a scheme for economically weaker section, it'll cost you about 15 cents a day. In other words, clean cooking fuel is available almost to everyone, and it's not an issue. Equally, because of the pandemic, we made available 3 meals of dry ration in a day to every family for their thing. That's still continuing because it hasn't, So you make life easier for people at that level. But I believe the real importance from my point of view for this IEW session, or maybe we have great discussions on new contracts. People will team up for biofuels. I just had a meeting with the Brazilians. We had an excellent panel discussion where Deputy Prime Minister and I with our friends from Qatar and the UK. But this to me is something that is easily doable. And I think that was your comment. I see no reason why you cannot take this, either LPG, the product of a refinery, to every citizen, or we can take through biofuels, cooktops, or in some other ways. I think it is something within the realm of what I call the doable in a short time. Thank you very much. I'll just confine myself to that.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I do think many of us look with complete admiration about the huge progress that India has made. So let me call on I'll call on ministers, and I think, as I say, to share your own experiences in terms of what's worked, what hasn't worked, what are your stumbling blocks, both in terms of your planning, but also in terms of financing. How have you found methods to do this? And perhaps a third thing to have in your mind: are there ways that this group could come together, and by cooperating, by integrating, that you can actually make faster progress? So have that in your minds as well. And if I may start with Deputy Prime Minister Bidco from Tanzania to explain the progress you've been making in Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. And I want to commend His Excellency Minister Puri, the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas in the Government of India, honorable ministers and partners and stakeholders. I would like to express, first of all, my sincere gratitude for the opportunity to come together for the 3rd edition of Indian Week in this year, 2025. But before I begin, allow me again to transmit my fraternal greetings from Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and to the people of India, and Her Excellency Draupadi Murmu, President of Republic of India, and indeed Honorable Hardeep Singh Puri, the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, who is our host here today. Excellencies, despite our national energy policy of 2015 that emphasized the use of alternative cooking energy and appropriate technology, only less than 7% of our population was using clean cooking in 2021, according to the survey that was conducted by the World Bank. To address this challenge in 2022, we decided to hold a first national dialogue to discuss the clean cooking solution in the country. The dialogue was braced by Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, as a guest of honor. Many issues were discussed, including health, environment, economy, education, and gender, focusing on benefit of clean cooking energy and the negative impacts of using unclean cooking energy solutions. Following the dialogue, the President directed the development of 10 years strategy to guide the country in transitioning to clean cooking energy, recognizing that unclean cooking sources affects women and girls, and they are the primary cook in the African tradition. Clean cooking is not only the matter of national matter, but also a global issue, as Minister Puri has said. According to the statistics, which has clearly said approximately 2.3 billion people worldwide lack access to clean cooking energy, and 990 million people are coming from the sub-Saharan Africa who do not have access to clean cooking solution. As a result, health and environmental and even economic problems arise in the continent. Tanzania is a country that values the well-being of citizens, environmental conservation, and economic growth, recognizes the significance of transitioning to clean cooking solution. With this in mind, Tanzania completed the development of national clean cooking strategy for 10 years, that is from 2024 to 2030, with the main goal of assuring that 80% of Tanzanians are using clean cooking solution by the year 2030, which was launched in May 2024. The strategy outlines the country's current situation and the situation regarding cooking energy solution, as well as strategies that targets toward achieving 80% goal. In the course of learning from experience of other countries, we have realized that India stands out as statistics shows that by 2023, 71% of Indian population was using clean cooking energy. As a lesson from this is the importance of evolving private sector and coupling subsidies to low-income households so that they can access clean cooking also. The clean cooking solution included in our clean cooking strategy are natural gas, electricity, LPG, improved cook stoves, briquettes, solar cookers, biogas, bioethanol, and many others. So we face major task of raising awareness because of the traditional understanding on how to use this new modern technology for cooking. And we continue providing education, benefit of using the clean cooking to the entire population. And the government is now creating an enabling environment to ensure that clean cooking energy is easily accessible, affordable, and reliable, and also sustainable. Excellencies, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, is determined to elevate the clean cooking agenda beyond Tanzania and Africa border. At the COP28 summit, she launched the African Women Clean Cooking Energy Empowerment Program, aimed at addressing the major gender, environmental, and health economic challenges that are facing women and girls in Africa due to the use of traditional cooking method. In addition, she attended the Clean Cooking Energy High-Level Summit in France in 2024. She served as a co-chair, and approximately 2.2 billion was pledged for the clean cooking solution in the continent. Recently in Tanzania, in collaboration with the African Energy Commission, she organized a high-level side meeting on clean cooking in Africa at the UN General Assembly in September 2024. The purpose of this meeting was to explore how Africa can ensure the resource needed to implement the clean cooking initiatives in the continent, considering Africa's program and other initiatives within member states. Furthermore, Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, the President of the United Republic of Tanzania, delivered a presentation on clean cooking energy at the G20 summit in Brazil. The summit resolved intensify effort to ensure access to clean cooking energy by 2030. And during the African Head of State Summit held in Dar es Salaam, in Tanzania, from 27 to 28 February this year, the President also signed in Dar es Salaam declaration with the joint African heads of states the commitment on implementation of national energy compacts, which, among other things, embraces the distribution of renewable energy and clean cooking solution. These are the initiatives, ladies and gentlemen, and many others demonstrate our resolve to ensure that African women who are most affected by unhealthy source of energy can have the way of having clean energy for cooking and preparing their meal. I therefore would like to take this opportunity to urge all stakeholders, partners, players in the energy sector to join us in the ambitious yet achievable goals to access electricity and clean cooking solution, increase the share of renewables in the energy mix in our grids, and increase the private capital mobilization to support the energy sector. Ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, clean cooking has a variety of business opportunities in the country. So I would like to take this opportunity to welcome private sector to participate in the entire clean cooking value chain. Minister Puri yesterday told me that in India, the big chunk of it is handled by the private sector. It is my call now for the Indian private sector and whoever beyond Africa to join us in this effort to make the clean cooking initiative a reality. I would like to conclude my remarks by warmly welcoming you to Tanzania to come and see the steps we have taken to ensure that the goal of ensuring that 80% of our population are using clean cooking solution by the year 2034. That is going to be achieved. So I thank you, moderator, for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. And we do have some chairmen and managing directors of some private sector companies with us today who have played an active role in India, and we're going to bring them in later for them to share their experiences. It's interesting, when you're thinking about most questions on energy, the answer is you need many, many, many different types of energy. It is interesting listening to this conversation about whether there's benefits of having many different approaches to clean cooking, or whether there's advantage in trying to manage that down to maximise the economies of scale. The experience of India is by focusing on one technique. I wonder if you can actually achieve those distribution issues more easily. And that's a question for others to share their views on. If I may, I'm going to next call on Minister Saeed from Sudan to share their experiences, if I may, please.
Good morning, everyone. Honorable Puri, Minister of India, honorable ministers, allow me at the outset of my speech to this esteemed audience to express my heart and gratitude to Indian government for warm and reception and hospitality. Sudan oil has played major role in boosting this relation between when in 2003 between ONGC joined Sudan Oil and Gas, invested. Rosa established itself as a major player in Sudan oil industry. This, of course, before independence between South and North Sudan. Even when we reached that time, our production was about 500,000 barrels per day, you know. And Honorable Minister, members of International Energy Committee, all protocol observed, allow me as, you know, Southern Sudan, which contain the 3 quarters after independence of the South of the North Sudan, and most of our oil goes to the South Sudan, and Sudan energy sector, like many other facilities and infrastructure, has been systematically destroyed by the rapid support military, which has been since April 2030, and going a war on Sudan people, the state and institutions as a whole in major targeting Sudan stability, unity on resources. We know original powers behind it. So by this war, our priority in Sudan was to import energy by private sector, not by government. You know, government now is war is a very big expenses, and our people needs was imported by the private sector. Even LPG, of course. Last time before the independence, our oil was 500 million barrels per day before 2011, and the refinery Khartoum was producing 60% of our needs in Sudan, and we import the rest by the private sector. Now, by this environment, we import all our needs from the outside, and also cylinder is covered 40% from Sudan, and this is our capacity, our strategy to extend healthy food cooking will be at 6%, 60% by the 2030. And nowadays we are applying a strategy, new strategy to encourage the private sector to import LPG from outside, and we have 22 blocks has a potential data to be explored, and I want to invite private sector to share us invest in these blocks, and some of them are very promising. I think Block 8, ONGC knows that, have an LPG in the well, and we have Red Sea. We have 3 blocks. Oil production. The data was promising. Data is there is a gas for these blocks on Red Sea, like Aramco, Suez in Egypt. All these blocks are very promising to produce gas. So I invite private sector to come and discuss with our technical people, and it is a very promising oil. So our strategy to extend this service, we call it a basic service in Sudan. Our strategy to fulfill the needs of our people. Our strategy is a basic needs like communication, like electricity, and we classified it as a need. So the government put it in priority, as a high priority in Sudan, to extend the LPG service to all regions of Sudan. Now we covered 40%, and we are targeting to 60% by the end of 2030. Thank you for the chance. I will elaborate later, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I think understanding the issues that, as you expand clean cooking, if it then increases your import dependency, which comes with an increasing import bills, then that's another issue that we have to then think about on this issue. I wanted at this point to bring in the Minister from Nepal, but I'm not sure if they arrived or not. I don't think they have. In which case, if I may, I wanted to bring in Secretary Neto from Brazil to give some of the reflections from your own country, Secretary. Okay,
thank you so much. Your Excellency, Minister Puri, thank you. And I bring the compliments of Governor Ronaldo Caiado that was here yesterday. And I'm here with my colleague, Cesar Moura. We are both secretaries, I from Science and Technology, him for Economic Recovery. So in our state, Goiás is a fast-growing state in Brazil. We had in 2016, 32% of the households using coal or firewoods for cooking. 5 years later, this rate dropped to 13%. And what is behind this? Maybe there are 2 main stories or 2 main strategies. One is poverty reduction. Around 25 years ago, Brazil started a program as gas assistance. So we made cash transfers for the families, poor families, to buy the cylinders, so the LPGs. And this policy increased. It was made part of Bolsa Familia, our main cash transfer program, and today it is a different one. And this was really, really important for the families. In our state, Goiás, we have the lowest rate of extreme poverty in Brazil, less than 1%, because building on top of the national program, we also have our cash transfer programs to mothers, to seniors, and to people in vulnerability. And the last stage is something really important that is also happening here in India. I would say, like, this next generation of cash transfer programs studied by some important economists, including Indian-born Banerjee, the Nobel Prize in economics. These are the graduation programs, so people, they graduate from poverty. And what Cesar does, we give not only cash transfers, but we transfer assets. And so the women can open small businesses and they can leave poverty behind. So this is one story. The other story is related to innovation and education. And this is a very important one, and we are looking for funds to scale this up. What we are doing right now in schools in Goiás, so we have these biodigesters, and we use the residues of the food and organic residues to make biogas. And so this biogas is used in cooking the meals for the kids. We have these pilots in some schools, in 2 schools, one of them the Schools of the Future, and we are looking for funds to scale this up. But this has a double effect, right? So to cook them, to have a clean kitchen there, and to teach the kids in the future people that are going to cook. So this is very important to us. And so in both of these strategies, we are trying to improve the conditions of the kitchens and looking for the future. We are happy to learn from these experiences here in India and in other states. And about the roadblocks, just to finish, Cesar was reminding me, there is sometimes a cultural roadblock. So these kind of kitchens in Brazil, they are a cultural heritage. So, and this is not that easy to rid of. And so there is also, it's not only about money, but it's about a cultural change that we are trying to do. But this is also doable, as the minister said. So thank you again for this space, and we are happy to share other experiences and learn from you.
Minister Puri, yes.
No, thank you very much. No, I have the privilege, I've had the privilege of being posted in Brazil, and I'm very familiar with their programs. I mean, some time ago, but Bolsa Familia, the program which President Lula, in his first term when I served there, I mean, there the effect of that program down to that, it's very clearly evident. I mean, it's just not, you're not only providing some transfers, you have to make sure the children went to school, they got milk in the school, they got several other things. And our Brazilian colleague mentioned the link with the reduction in poverty. I wanted to mention the Indian experience. When we talk about clean cooking gas and we talk about the period from 2014 to today, that's 11 years of the Modi government. During this period, multidimensional poverty, we have removed 250 million people from multidimensional. So when you are doing this program, you're also simultaneously, I don't know which is what. Is one causing the other, or is that helping that? But if you are to look at poverty reduction, this becomes a very important component, along with some other schemes. In our case, the sanitation program, building public toilets, bringing community toilets, the taking of clean drinking water to every tap in India. That became a very important part of that program. Taking electricity to every part of India. So clean drinking water, electricity, plus cooking, clean cooking. These all went hand in hand, and that's where the poverty reduction happened.
Thank you. I'm going to, if I may, now turn to Minister Malunga from Malawi. And I know you've been thinking hard about sort of different financing programs. So in your comments, to think about your experiences in terms of what's working in terms of financing would also be really interesting. So Minister Malunga, please. You're there. It's okay. Just touch it once. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I would like to express our gratitude as the government of Malawi to the government of India for considering us to be part of this important meeting. And by this far, we have managed to learn a lot on how other countries have actually increased the access to clean cooking. Our story began in 2012, where we started the efforts to increase clean cooking. And we set ourselves a target of meeting or distributing 2 million clean cook stores by 2020, a target which we achieved. And later in 2021, we were recognized as a clean cooking champion by UN. And where we are going in the energy compact that we have produced, and it was being launched in January in Tanzania, we aim to distribute or to increase access to clean cooking to 75% by 2030. Now, our journey to this success, I should say currently, we are at 31% in terms of uptake of clean cooking stoves. So what has contributed to this success mostly are the following factors. The first one is high political will. Our president in 2012, through Minister of Gender, signed an agreement with the Global Alliance on Clean Cook Stoves so that we can start promoting clean cook stoves in Malawi. And this opened doors for various government support on clean cooking in Malawi. Secondly, we followed what we call a multi-stakeholder approach. We did not want to go alone. We established a steering committee whose members were various stakeholders in clean cooking, including ministries, agencies of the government, departments of the government, the non-government organizations, private sector, academia, and the donor community. The overall mandate of that steering committee was to plan and drive the agenda of clean cooking. We as Minister of Energy, we have been acting as a chair for that multi-stakeholder steering committee. And from that, it has made everyone in Malawi concerned the sector in clean cooking to start prioritizing clean cooking in their policies, strategies, and projects. Further to that, we did also a lot of awareness campaigns so that we inform people that did not have access to clean cooking, the benefit of clean cooking, and other stakeholders also, so that they know how beneficial clean cooking is, going beyond cooking to cover environmental aspects, health aspects, and other aspects of the people and country Malawi. And another aspect was also that since we involved the donor as one of the stakeholders in the committee, it has been very, very easy for us to raise donor support for clean cooking project. And another thing that also helped us actually to sustainably increase access to clean cooking is the model that we are following. We are following a market model where distribution of clean cooking services has been left to the non-government organizations and the private companies. In this model, the role of the government is just coordination, creating of an enabling environment, and also de-risking the clean cooking investment for the private sector. While the donor come in actually to provide low cost or zero cost capital for clean cooking projects. Now, turning to financing. We have found 3 financing models to be very, very key in our success. The first one is tax incentives. Government has waived taxes for clean cooking stoves that are imported, including the value addition tax, VAT, and the import duties. These have been extended also to LPG that we import and the cylinders. All of these come into Malawi without import duties and VAT. That has contributed to affordability of these clean cook stoves and LPG in Malawi. And another financing model is result-based financing, whereby we do instruct non-government organizations and the private companies in clean cooking sector to actually be selling these clean cooking services on cheaper prices. And us as government and donor community, we come in to compensate the NGOs, non-government organizations, and private sector for the difference between the market price of clean cooking stoves and the subsidy price. So we fill in the gap to help people access these on cheaper prices. And another model that has actually helped us to reach 31% uptake is demand-side subsidies linked to safety net programs that benefit the poor. So poor households are targeted for safety nets like social cash transfer, and they are also allowed to purchase clean cooking services on subsidized prices. Going forward, Malawi has discovered 3 more financing models that we want to adopt. Firstly is carbon financing. On carbon financing, we hope to further reduce the affordability gap for existing cookstoves, and we hope that this will also help us to introduce e-cooking appliances and also ethanol for cooking. In this case, we envisage that revenues from selling carbon credits will actually compensate for cheaper prices at which private companies or non-government organizations are selling these clean cooking services. And number 2, we have discovered what we call on-bill financing. On-bill financing involves actually allowing customers to be paying for clean cooking services as they pay the bills, say, for example, electricity. So we want to use it to promote high-cost electric cooking appliances like induction cookers. And number 3, we want to start giving loans, soft loans, to companies that distribute high-tier clean cooking services. Actually, on that one, we have received the financing from World Bank amounting to $10 million US. We want to start giving out loans to companies that are in the clean cooking sector so that they can expand their distribution of high-tier clean cooking services to households in Malawi. And this project is expected to start in mid of this year. Reaching that far, I wanted to emphasize the need for us to increase investment in the clean cooking sector so that we achieve our ambitions for reaching out to 75% population in Malawi by 2030. It will require a lot of donor funding. It will require a lot of investment from private sector. So we call upon foreign governments, donor community, and private sector to come and assist us in Malawi. We have de-risked the sector with the favorable policies, and I think it is a fertile ground for investment now in clean cooking sector, both the public sector financing and private sector financing. Thank you.
Minister, that was fascinating, your different models you've been exploring. It's interesting, when you read the literature, you read a lot about carbon financing and doing it in terms of carbon credits, but the benefits of clean cooking extend far beyond carbon. And my slight concern is if you frame it in terms of carbon, it may not be the right metric, where the metric in terms of overall health benefits, the impacts on gender, and so on, are far bigger. So the impacts here are potentially far greater, I think, potentially than just carbon. I'm sorry, Minister.
No, I just wanted to come in to make a comment on what our colleague from Malawi said. We have developed a solar cooktop. And with all the effort that we've made, it's a very successful model. But the cost per unit still, Rasal, is how much? About 45,000 rupees for a cooktop along with a solar panel, and which is about $500. Now, the problem is how do you bring the cost down so that the customer or the consumer will prefer this to something else? So I have been personally in touch, for instance, with the Gates Foundation, who are very thrilled with the idea. And we are using the carbon route, which my colleague from Malawi is saying, domestically. In my constituency, for instance, they're setting up 200 cooktops in 200 places to see how we can utilize that. The difficulty in developing societies, and I sympathize with that because that's my own experience, is that you're looking at all possible means of being able to do it. I personally think that the solar cooktop is a fascinating idea. But when I tell my oil companies, IOCL is the one, which is not here just now, but if you were to float a tender for large scale, the cost will come down. But till it comes down, you need something. So I think carbon, this thing may be an interim till we are able to bring it down. I hosted a 300 people home for lunch once, only to make the effect that all the food was cooked on a solar cooktop. And so the press was there, etc. So the idea caught on for a while. But after that, people go back. You know, you have to go on giving the message. So I think as we look at clean cooking oil, somewhere in the back of our mind, if we can get some kind of a collaborative effort with the private sector on solar cooktops, even for our Prime Minister's scheme, which is to produce solar energy for free units, it's called the Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana. So we give a subsidy for a solar panel to be installed on the roof of the house. If you produce electricity from that, 300 units you can keep for your own consumption. Instead of giving a freebie, that's it. The other surplus energy you can use for putting up a charging station for your electric vehicle, and you still have some left, put it in the grid. And we have an excellent grid, and you can earn some money from that. Now, in my solar cooker case, I'm not making a complaint, I never got any subsidy. So if the subsidy used to be given by the state, for one, that may work, or I think we need to scale it up. And I think the solar cooker has been demonstrated, it works.
Thank you. And the really attractive idea of a solar cooker, in many aspects of the energy transition, you hear about countries leapfrogging. You leapfrog old technologies and go straight to the new technology. And so there's an interesting question is one could leapfrog LPG and then you go straight to the solar cooker and you avoid many of those issues associated with distribution, with imports and so on. I'm going to bring in Councillor Mwepsi, I think I'm sure I've made a mess of your name, from Rwanda, to explain your experiences from Rwanda. Councillor.
Thank you so much, Moderator. Honorable Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Government of India, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister of the United Republic of Tanzania, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished guests. On behalf of Rwanda government, we extend gratitude for the invitation that was sent to Rwanda to participate in this important session, to share thoughts towards the noble cause to bring our Mother Earth to its pristine ecological status by averting critical change to Earth systems and biodiversity loss and ecosystem collapse. Rwanda commends India Energy Week that, I quote, is a dynamic platform to foster high-level discussions, business networking, and knowledge sharing, driving collaboration across the energy sector, unquote. For Rwanda particularly, the country's green cooking policy primarily focuses on promoting the use of clean cooking technologies like improved cook stoves and liquefied petroleum gas to reduce reliance on wood, fuel, and charcoal for cooking, thereby protecting forests and improving public health by minimizing smoke inhalation. The government actively subsidizes these clean cooking technologies to make them more accessible to the population. Rwanda's goal is to significantly decrease the percentage of households using wood fuel and charcoal for cooking. The aim was to reduce it by 42% by 2024, last year. The main strategy is to subsidize improved cook stoves and LPG access, often through programs that target low-income households. The benefits are reduced deforestation due to decreased firewood demand, improved public health by mitigating smoke-related illnesses, potential economic benefits by supporting the clean cooking technology market. We, however, note some challenges that need to be addressed. One, affordability concerns, with LPG being relatively expensive for some Rwandans. Two, acceptance and adoption of new cooking technologies by households, and third and finally, maintenance costs for certain clean cooking options. These three challenges are definitely the sectors where we are actually calling for investors to invest in to promote the clean cooking in Rwanda. So we take this opportunity to invite the Indian investors to explore these opportunities in investing in clean cooking in our country. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. And what is striking, I think we've heard it on several from Brazil, from Malawi, from yourself, that when you think about this issue, you often understand the issues to do with the logistics, you understand the issues to do with financing, but equally important is behavioural and educational change, and that seems a critical part of this process as well for a successful programme. I think we've been joined from our colleague from Nepal, Minister. If I may invite you to share some of your experiences from Nepal in terms of how you've been progressing this issue on clean cooking, sir. Just push it. There we are. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all ministers, it is an honor to speak on this importance of clean cooking, a key elements and sustainable development, environmental concern and public health. Millions still really on traditional bio and fossil fuel for cooking, leading to indoor air pollution, deforestation, and carbon emission. Traditional to clean cooking solution is instead of the reducing emission, promotion health, living condition, and ensuring energy security. Nepal is alignment with international commitments such as the Paris Agreement and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, is advancing clean cooking through clear policy, time-bound targets, and effective important elements strategy. Nepal aims to install electric stove in 25% of households by 2030, distribute 500,000 improved cooked stove by 2025, and establish 200,000 household biogas plant along with 500 large-scale bio plant by 2025. Reducing cooking sector emission by 23%. The National Adoption Plan 2021 events 50,000 domestic bio plants, 300 large-scale bio plants, and 1 million clean cooking stove by 2030. Nepal is 65 years plan targeted 50,000 domestic bio plants, 645,000 improved cook stoves, and 1 million electric cook stove. The Green Climate Fund has supported Nepal's clean cooking initiative with a US $21.12 million grant, contributing to a total project cost of the US $49.15 million. Currently, Nepal has over 132,000 improved cook stove. 450,000 domestic bio plant, 669 large-scale bio plants, and 59,000 electric cook stove. Despite progress, more than 50% of the Nepal's population still depend on traditional fuels, while electric cooking remains below 1%. Nepal Clean Cooking Initiative contribute to global effort to reduce carbon emission and aligned with the international climate goals. The country's commitment is reinforced through collaboration with the multilateral institution, climate financing mechanism, and international development agencies. These efforts are critical to ensure equitable energy access, reducing reliance on fossil fuel, and promoting technological advancement in clean cooking solution. Clean cooking solution not only reduce carbon emission but also improve public health and economic productivity. Women and children most affected by indoor population will benefit from better health and great opportunity for education and employment. Financing through carbon trading, climate financial and green bonds is crucial for expanding clean cooking technologies. Government, private investor, and international organizations must collaborate to make these technologies affordable and accessible. Nepal remains commitment to a clean, sustainable future through clean cooking initiatives. By investment in sustainable energy, we can protect the environment, enhance public health, and drive economic progress. I urge policymakers, investors, and global partners to work together to make clean cooking a reality, contribute to sustainable and carbon-free world. Furthermore, I would thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. So with apologies, my job as moderator was to make sure that we finished on time, and I've failed. Well, no, I've failed, Minister, because there is some more perspectives I wouldn't mind just getting to the room. So if, with your permission and patience, I'd just like to eat into our lunch hour a little bit. We have two different types of perspectives. We have two international research agencies here who have their own perspectives, and then we have also some three representatives of the private sector. So I'm going to bring in those, and when doing so, I guess the challenge or the request is you have ministers here who are actually trying to do real programs, and so in a relatively short period of time, I ask you, what sort of key messages would you give to them? What key one or two pieces of advice would you give to them to sort of try to make a success of their own programs? To start that, I would like to call on Professor Watanabe, who is President of IRIA, for your own perspective, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Moderator, and thank you, Honourable Minister Puri, for the wonderful opportunity. Before going into my prepared remark, I'm sorry, but just touch upon the solar cooker Minister mentioned. Just now, we had a very interesting discussion in the morning panel with the colleagues and the experts from TERI, how to scale it. solar cookers. It's a very interesting discussion, and we also touch upon the carbon pricing, its relation to the carbon pricing. Minister, I think, touched upon a very important point. Just back to my point. My name is Watanabe, President of BERIA, international organization located in Jakarta, Indonesia, serving for the policy making for ASEAN and Asia, India included. Our focus is, one of the key focus is energy transition in our region, and try to voice up, strengthen voice of the global south, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America to international discussion. That is our role. And turning to today's topics, of course, expanding access in general to clean and reliable energy is essential for driving economic growth, improving people's life, and a sustainable future for developing countries. But despite being home to over the 56% of the world population, the developing countries generate only 18% of global power. This is a stark imbalance that translates into widespread energy poverty, limiting economic opportunities, exacerbating social inequalities. Turning to today's topic on cooking, clean cooking, I think Indians' case is a very successful model case for other countries to learn under your leadership, Minister's strong leadership. And building upon the successful model case in India, I would like to touch upon, emphasize 3 points. One is, of course, infrastructure and economic barriers. Number 2 is, as we discussed, cultural resistance. And the third is, of course, innovative and scalable solution. First, on the electrification and gas-based solution, remained constrained by high investment costs, infrastructure limitation. If you can look at the Southeast Asian countries like Laos, PDR, Cambodia, Myanmar, traditional biomass remains still widespread because of the, as you know, that the Southeast Asian countries is projected to become a net importer of gas by 2030s, underscoring the need for diversified, affordable solutions. Second, on the cultural and behavioral resistance remain a significant barrier. So experience from India and other developing economies has shown that imposing new technology without community engagement leads to resistance. So strategy must be tailored to local context and leveraging improved traditional stove design, for example, are important. Finally, innovation must be a key. Advancing sustainable bioenergy solution, second generation advanced biofuels, creating a competitive energy market will be crucial. And before concluding, just touch upon the Global South Cooperation. Developed countries in Asia, India, Africa, and Latin America have a wealth of experience in overcoming energy access barriers. And stronger South-South cooperation is key. And the area, as I said, that located in Jakarta, Indonesia, is ready to support, to provide policy platform and policy engagement with stakeholders. Thank you for the opportunity, Minister.
Thank you very much, Professor. I want to bring in Mary Wallach, who's the Deputy Executive Director of the IEA. The IEA has made a number of very important pushes and initiatives in this area. So, Mary, what should ministers have in their minds here in terms of a successful program?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to join you. I want to thank you, Minister Puri, in particular, for leading this ministerial discussion today and kindly inviting us to join you. I know Dr. Burrell sends his regards and is just sorry he was not able to join you due to another big event in Paris where I know your Prime Minister was present and they had an opportunity, I understand, to greet each other. So just wanted to start by saying, this has been and is a big priority for the International Energy Agency. making progress on access to clean cooking is clearly one of the really important SDG 7 goals, including electricity to access, of course. And it's been so interesting to hear from so many of the ministers already. You're already taking, so many of you, really important steps, both in terms of setting very clear goals. As I think was referenced, and I think as many of you know, the IEA hosted just last year in May of 2024 a major summit on clean cooking, focusing on Africa in particular, as again, as was noted, nearly 1 billion people, 990 million people or households in people in Africa still lack access to clean cooking. So there's a major challenge there. And Mr. Minister, you rightly pointed out to the success and the great success that India has made in this regard. And I think having success stories such as yours can really lend a very encouraging example to others in terms of some of the solutions that can be approached. So I just wanted to mention, a few. I think the challenges have already been touched on quite well, and so I just wanted to say a few words about them and some of the policy levers, again, that I think governments are already taking. But the issue of affordability and access is obviously a critical one. The high upfront costs of clean cooking technologies and the limited fuel supply chains hinder adoption in some cases, especially in rural and low-income areas. The energy infrastructure gaps clearly need to be looked at. This is, in many cases, unreliable grids, insufficient LPG distribution networks, although, of course, India has made great strides in that regard, but again, in many developing regions. But and then this leads, of course, to the financing shortfalls and the challenges. So international financial flows will have and will play a really important role in advancing clean cooking access. We do agree that this is a challenge that should be achievable with the right political will, which I think our colleague from Malawi mentioned, as well as the strong participation not only of governments to help set the right policy environment, but also the collaboration of both leveraging public funds as well as increasing role of the private sector, which was mentioned by some of you. Concessional finance will still need to be made available to support projects in some of the poorest regions. Some of you spoke to the acceptance and adoption issues, and I think it's really important to be mindful of those as well. There are, to some degree, cultural issues that we need to be thinking about in order to move all of this forward. And the policy levers, I know, again, many of you touched upon targeted subsidies and incentives, which, as we saw in the case of India, too, the direct subsidies for LPG, smart subsidy schemes, such as the ones you've put in place, have successfully expanded LPG access. The right regulatory and fiscal policies are really important. Reducing taxes on clean cooking equipment and fuels can help shift the market dynamics. Expanding distribution networks for LPG, electricity, and biofuels is really important. And I mentioned the importance of public-private partnerships to drive investment in the fuel supply chains and last-mile delivery. And so just in a nutshell, just again, want to really emphasize just how important this is to us, to our members, in working with countries all around the world. We were really pleased coming back to the Clean Cooking Summit last year to have the President of Tanzania as well as the Prime Minister of Norway co-host this with our Executive Director. And we're very pleased to welcome so many of you, a number of you who are with us today. This is achieving universal access to clean cooking will clearly require a combination of strong policies, innovative financing, infrastructure investments, and behavioral change initiatives. A multi-stakeholder approach, again, as has been mentioned, involving governments, private sector, and international organizations, will really be critical to closing the gap by 2030 and keeping this at the very top of our agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Minister Puri, you want to come in?
There's one point which I'm very happy the representative of the IEA has raised, which is the government's approach to providing assistance. And she used the word a smart subsidy. And I think that's a very relevant question. Because if you have a generally available subsidy, which means it's available to everyone, you will see that people who don't need it end up taking advantage of it. I remember clearly, I think when the Prime Minister had taken over, when it was in 2014, he made an appeal that people who don't need it, a lot of people gave up those subsidized this thing. But today, for our LPG cylinders, we have a criteria of what, 12 points or so, 12 points. You have to tick those boxes, as a result of which we are convinced that the benefit is being availed of only by those who actually need it. And our companies actually undertake, because it's the private sector companies which are doing it, organized oil marketing company, they conduct surveys from time to time. Because what is available for a household which is a beneficiary and which qualifies under the economically weaker sector, 12 cylinders are available. But we did a calculation saying that 12 cylinders are not necessary. They said to us, so when they look at, they weed out people also as part of this exercise. But the difference, the important thing is the difference between the beneficiaries of the scheme and the non-beneficiaries is not that much. I mean, if it's available to the beneficiaries for 7 cents in a day, non-beneficiaries at 15 cents in a day. So and there is also in India a difference between the commercial rate of a cylinder and the domestic cylinder. Because the commercial cylinder, which is used by industrial establishments, restaurants, that's determined by the market. We don't interfere. So I think this is a very important point. And when you're designing policy, make sure that that benefit which you are going, which ultimately government has to bear the cost, goes only to the people who really need it, rather than gets dispersed.
Thank you. The last stage, or the last set of inputs, I appreciate we are overrunning, but a constant theme here has been the involvement of the private sector. We have 3 private sector companies that have been actively involved in either researching or implementing the programme here in India. So I'm going to call on both Vander Insights, Total Energies and BCG to give their perspectives. But can I ask you guys, if you could keep your comments relatively compressed. Everybody's on tight timetables and they do need to have some lunch as well. So if I may. So first of all, Vedana Hari from Vander Insights, if I may, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Spencer. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much again, Mr. Puri, for giving me this opportunity. For those of you around the table that are not familiar with me, my perspective comes from having observed, analyzed, reported on the oil and gas markets globally. I'd like to address a few points that came up from several of the comments made this morning. First of all, Mr. Puri, again, I think join everybody here in congratulating India in having progressed so much, so quickly in terms of bringing LPG into the poorer households. I think the flip side of that, I feel, is that the onus now on India is even greater, because clearly countries around this table are going to be looking towards India, because they clearly can't adopt a model from the Western economy. So you're going to be a role model even more, I think. Spencer, one of the points you raised earlier was, should it be economies of scale in terms of going after just one solution, LPG, or should it be a combination of solutions? So again, my experience with when it comes to energy, managing our energy needs, diversification is the best policy. So perhaps some sort of, obviously we can't go after 10 solutions either, so some balance needs to be struck. In that balance, I feel LPG will remain, should remain an important component. I don't think we can completely remove it. I think electric stoves is a good idea. I am aware that India has also progressed quite a great deal in bringing electricity to consumers that didn't have it previously. So electric stoves, I think, is worth pursuing. Something the government in Singapore does, and I know Singapore comes across as an affluent society, but believe it or not, which is where I live, by the way, Singapore, there are poor households in Singapore. A scheme that the government has used successfully is smart metering for electricity to households. I do wonder if smart metering electricity, basically it's pay as you go. So because households have limited cash available, you can pay every 5 days, 10 days, whatever, and your meter gets reset again. So that could be used in the case of electric stoves. That could also perhaps be used in LPG. So pay as you go. So it becomes, so that's less cash intensive for these families. I think biogas, that's the other solution. Definitely, please keep it in the mix. I was going to touch upon the cross subsidies, the tiered subsidy scheme. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I wrote extensively about it, the way India went about it, in asking affluent families to give up. And I think that scheme worked wonderfully, and perhaps it's the only scheme of its kind globally in terms of tiered subsidies. Let me put out a slightly maybe controversial point there. You mentioned that the distinction between poorer and affluent families and what they pay for LPG is still relatively low. I completely agree with you. And this is a controversial point, but could we possibly get the affluent families to pay more, cross-subsidize? So again, my aim is to put I stick my neck out and, whole of society approach, I think, is another point I wanted to make. I think we should not underestimate educating affluent consumers that why they should pay more they should not get subsidized for gasoline and for driving their cars is very different from changing the mindset in rural societies, changing behavior in rural societies. Some of the speakers mentioned schools. I think that's a brilliant idea. Whole of society approach, bring schools into it. Mr. Puri, you mentioned solar cooktop, solar stoves are still expensive. Can we look at community cooking schemes, and again, with schools? So where children are fed, but that uses, so there's less cooking needed at home. Families are encouraged to send their children to school as well, because that's where the cooking will be done, and that's where the children get to eat as well, especially girls that don't get sent to school. I think a lot of us, not all of us around this table are privileged. I doubt any one of us, at least speaking for the Indian members around this table, have actually spent much time in really poor rural households. I feel working with NGOs, somebody who understands what the less privileged society members, how they behave. I think that might be a good idea as well.
And I think I'm going to...
Last point, I think PR campaigns. Sorry, Spencer. I think PR campaigns, India used one for polio inoculation. I think that's a great way I think societal education and awareness in rural societies is very important as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thibault Lesser from Total.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to welcome Total Energy around the table. Thank you, Honourable Minister, to lead this discussion. So I'm the representative of Total Energy here in India, leading the marketing business, and I used to be in Africa earlier, so I can really testify what you said. India is a kind of an exemplary country in terms of clean cooking. We market some LPG bottles, but really when we see what our peers, the national oil companies are doing is really impressive, and they are really doing the right things at the right moment, so congratulations. And for us, as Total Energy, I will highlight our commitment and what we do in Africa, because I have been there for some time and now based in India. So as you may remember, Patrick Pouyanné, our CEO, committed last year to give access to 100 million persons on clean cooking solutions by 2030. This is representing an investment of $400 million. So in Africa, precisely, we are present in 17 countries, and we are there for quite a long time. In some countries, we are there for more than 70 years. So we know the environment, we know the challenges, and so we'll continue to invest. So the idea in Africa is to reach 80 million people by 2030 to give LPG cylinders. And for that is to illustrate what you just said earlier. We do some initiatives. So obviously, we invest in cylinders, bottling plants, infrastructure. We need also to engage our distributors because the marketing of the cylinders are done by partners, and themselves they have also to engage micro distributors. And is where the NGOs are also important, because we need to have a different view on the normal road to market. The third topic is we need also to be innovative. So, for example, in Kenya and Uganda, we give some smart devices for pay-as-you-cook system. So we are not the one to deliver that. It's done also with microfinance partners. And the last thing that I want to raise, we have to make it happen. I mean, that we can do a lot of things, but the make it happen is key. And so what our teams are doing on everyday basis is a kind of a caravan of awareness towards people in rural areas in order to explain what is clean cooking, what is the health, what is the time that can be saved thanks to that, and what are the solutions that we can propose. And once again, so we do that with a lot of partners. And for us, by the way, it makes sense. It's another type of marketing. It makes sense, but it's not only us. We have to engage a lot of actors. Is what we do in Africa today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's fascinating. And finally, Mr. Panandika from BCG, please.
Thank you, Spencer. Given that food's being served, I'll try to be as brief as possible. It's an ungrateful task.
I know that really is pressure, isn't it, as a food serve.
So I'll be very quick. I think the India story is one of the most amazing stories, I think, and it's been said enough. But let me just quickly highlight from my side what I think are the points, and I'll be incredibly quick. It starts with political will and the policy framework, which I think the Minister has spoken very eloquently. The second is the financial support, targeted, tiered, all that sort of thing. Third is the infrastructure development. Fourth is behavioral change and awareness campaigns. Fifth is women empowerment. Sixth is innovation, access, and affordability. And finally, selling the benefits of environment and health as much as you think about the carbon. I want to highlight three things which I think India really aced it in my mind. The first of them is actually making sure that the implementation, we don't talk about that. I think kudos to our oil marketing companies who actually took all of this and actually made it happen. I think you just mentioned the made it happen part. I think it's not an easy task. This is a massive country. Moving from 140 million to 330 million in an incredibly short time, I think is an impressive task. The second is change management. We don't understand that. I think it's easy to say behavior change. Behavior change doesn't happen easily. And so I think just the awareness campaigns, just the driving and working with NGOs, just the innovativeness in actually making sure that this is sticking, I think is amazing. And the third one, again, not to take away any credit, I just think the innovation in terms of access and affordability is impressive. Creating the digital platforms, whether it's from an ordering perspective, whether it's from a tracking perspective, the last mile in India is an incredibly difficult challenge. Every time we observe, that's not something that most companies can crack and solve easily. We see that that has also happened. So I think these are these three things. Is it replicable? We firmly believe that this is a replicable model that should be taken to many other parts of the world. Again, one of the core bases of this is the public-private partnership. This cannot be done by any one institution or one arm of society. I think it has to be done together, and I think you've pointed that out extremely well. Just 2-3 challenges very quickly, and I'll close. Continued financing will become a challenge as always. It's good that we've gotten this going. Getting to where we were was great. How do we make sure that the tiering is continuing to be refined so that whether we pay more from the affluent part or anything, every country has its context. How do we create the continued financing is continuing to be a challenge for the global south. And I think the second is, how do we further refine, if we do even see the India experience, this is not to put a black dot, an amazing story, refills. We do get situations in which refills don't happen. That number could vary from 10% to 30%. How do we make sure we refine this model so that that continues to happen? So clean cooking is actually really universal. And finally, since the theme of yesterday's inaugural session was multi-fuel, as more fuels come into the basket, how do we balance this all out, I think also becomes a challenge, because you're talking of a private-public partnership. So I think we need to think about that as well. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Minister Puri, I pass to you for the last word.
No, I found this discussion fascinating because insofar as immediate tasks at hand are concerned, I think this is one of the most pressing missions that needs to be addressed. Whatever the Indian experience, for somebody who's lived through it for the last 3.5 years since I'm minister, I believe the Indian model has relevance for other countries in the global south because our conditions are very similar. we have populations, developmental challenges, etc. So I think the Western models on this do not apply here in this case. Insofar as the Indian model is concerned, we are also still in a learning exercise. For instance, one of the points that my friend Vandana made was, why can't the affluent user, rather the person who's using a cylinder at normal price, not be asked to cross-subsidize the beneficiary of an EW? Believe me, that's very easy in a discussion like this, Vandana, and I'd like to have a longer discussion with you. But in a democracy, if you go, because other people are not affluent, they just don't fit into that EWS category, economically weaker section. So there is a very large population between those who qualify and the affluent. And frankly, in a democracy with elections all the time, if I were to say, you can say it, you get away with it very easily because you live in Singapore. But if I were to turn around and say, hey, you guys, you're slightly better off than, you better pay for the thing. Brazil, it wouldn't happen. I've lived in Brazil. There's no way anybody will buy. India, certainly not. We are already having a very robust debate in India on something called the freebie culture and the non-it. Because the Prime Minister's idea is to make all these facilities economically viable through plans which are actually, it doesn't result in anybody getting free. So if we give you a solar rooftop, you produce the electricity, you use some for your personal consumption, rest get paid for it. So that's the one comment. Second comment I would like is that I am willing, at an individual level, to say that our oil marketing companies, and I invited, after the Deputy Prime Minister told me, I invited one of our companies to join us on, we could have a discussion over lunch or later. I think that replicability in the Global South is there. How do we go about it? I've had very good discussions with the Gates Foundation. They were very impressed with our solar cooker, and they are wanting us to use the carbon route here domestically to see how we can do it. But my answer again to that is, I think the real answer comes when you do it on a very large scale, because then the cost per unit comes down and then it works. I personally am not intimidated by the $500 cost per unit. And somebody said, why not? I think you did, Vandana, on community. We're doing it. Where there are gurdwaras and there are other armed forces are doing it. Where because the armed forces cook for a large number of people, we are using solar cookers there. We've actually tested the solar cooker in 37 different locations. Some very cold, some very, it works. So armed forces are using it. But that will not get public attention. The idea is to take it to those of our homes where the social impact. And I agree with our moderator. You cannot couch this in terms of what benefits will come on something other. You've got to immediately deliver so that the adverse injurious effects on the health are immediately measured. Behavioral change, in this case, I'm not worried about. Because anyone who's used LPG or, it goes from charcoal, you go to kerosene. Kerosene is also very injurious. Go to LPG, they will change immediately. In some of the other programs, like which I learned in Brazil, where a government program doesn't become a program of the people unless you make an effort. In the case of clean cooking gas, the behavioral change will come very quickly, provided you demonstrate it's there, and then the pressure which will come to change. But you have to ensure it is affordable.
And I think with that, we conclude. You can eat your lunch, and I think leaves us to thank Minister Puri for bringing today's session together. Thank you very much, sir.
No, whilst we eat here, we can still have a discussion, so please feel free. But we must eat first.
Do you want me to carry on?
No, we don't want you to take the burden. I mean, you must eat more than the others, so. But anybody wants to make a comment whilst we're eating, they're most welcome. He's the head of our biggest gas company, GAIL. Yeah, please.
So I'm Sandeep Kumar Gupta, CMD, GAIL India Limited, which is a natural gas leader in the country. And I just want to add